The Chernobyl nuclear disaster, which occurred on April 26, 1986, was one of the most catastrophic nuclear accidents in history. It took place at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, located near the town of Pripyat in the Ukrainian SSR, part of the former Soviet Union. The incident had far-reaching consequences, impacting the environment, health, and public perception of nuclear energy. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant had 4 RBMK-1000 reactors, a type of graphite-moderated reactor commonly used in the Soviet Union. During a scheduled safety test in the early hours of April 26, the operators were simulating a power failure scenario. The test was meant to determine how the reactor's cooling system and emergency generators would respond in the event of a power outage. However, a combination of design flaws, operator errors, and mismanagement led to a series of uncontrollable events that resulted in a catastrophic explosion and subsequent fire in reactor number 4. The key factors contributing to the disaster were: flawed reactor design. The RBMK-1000 reactor had a dangerous design flaw known as a positive void coefficient. When water in the reactor turned into steam, as would happen during a cooling system failure, the steam acted as a coolant, reducing the number of neutron-absorbing atoms in the reactor core. This led to a significant increase in reactivity and, in turn, a surge in power output. Operator errors. The operators conducting the safety test were not adequately trained, and the test was delayed due to a prior emergency. They proceeded with the experiment without following the proper safety procedures, disregarding warnings from the control room. Violation of safety protocols. Several safety protocols were ignored during the test, including the reduction of reactor power to a safer level before initiating the experiment. Explosions and fire. The sudden increase in power caused a massive steam explosion, which blew the reactor's lid off and released radioactive materials into the atmosphere. The graphite moderator caught fire and burned for days, releasing further radioactive smoke and particles. The explosion and subsequent fire released a substantial amount of radioactive materials into the atmosphere, spreading across large parts of the Soviet Union and Europe. The immediate area surrounding the plant was severely contaminated, leading to the evacuation and permanent displacement of thousands of people from nearby towns, including the city of Pripyat. The initial response to the disaster was slow and inadequate. The Soviet authorities tried to conceal the extent of the accident, delaying the evacuation and public notification. Eventually, the severity of the incident became impossible to hide, and international monitoring stations detected elevated radiation levels, forcing the Soviet Union to acknowledge the disaster publicly. The full extent of the health and environmental impacts of the Chernobyl disaster remains a subject of ongoing research and debate. Thousands of people suffered from acute radiation sickness, and many later developed cancer and other health issues due to exposure to radioactive materials. The disaster also had a profound psychological impact on the affected communities, who lost their homes and livelihoods. In the aftermath of the Chernobyl disaster, significant efforts were made to contain the contamination and mitigate its effects. A concrete structure called the sarcophagus was hastily constructed over the damaged reactor to prevent further releases of radioactive materials. Eventually, a more permanent structure called the new safe confinement was built to encase the entire sarcophagus and reactor, ensuring greater stability and containment. The Chernobyl disaster also prompted a re-evaluation of nuclear safety standards and regulations worldwide. It led to improvements in reactor design and safety practices, as well as a greater emphasis on transparency and communication during nuclear emergencies. Today, the Chernobyl exclusion zone, covering a 30-kilometer radius around the plant, remains mostly uninhabitable due to high radiation levels. However, the area has become a unique and eerie tourist destination, attracting visitors from around the world to witness the haunting remains of the abandoned town of Pripyat and the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. In summary, the Chernobyl nuclear disaster was a tragic event with far-reaching consequences, serving as a grim reminder of the potential dangers of nuclear energy and the critical importance of safety and responsible management in the nuclear industry. Provided below are questions and answers aimed at providing a clear explanation of the situation. Why was the Chernobyl nuclear power plant built? It was built to meet the increasing electricity demands of the Soviet Union, reduce pollution from fossil fuels, showcase technological progress, and enhance national security by diversifying energy sources. When was the plant started? The Chernobyl nuclear power plant's first reactor, reactor number 1, was commissioned and started operation on September 27, 1977. How long was the plant in operations after this disaster? After the Chernobyl disaster on April 26, 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant continued to operate its other reactors for some time. Reactor number 4, the one involved in the disaster, was initially shut down shortly after the incident. However, its adjacent units continued operating. The last reactor at the Chernobyl plant, reactor number 3, remained in operation until December 15, 2000. On that date, reactor number 3 was officially shut down, marking the end of the plant's operational life after the disaster. So, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant operated for about 14 years after the disaster, with reactor number 3 being the last to shut down. What happened during the Chernobyl nuclear disaster? The Chernobyl nuclear disaster was a catastrophic nuclear accident that occurred on April 26, 1986, at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in the Soviet Union. It involved a massive explosion and fire in reactor number 4, leading to the release of a significant amount of radioactive materials into the atmosphere. Why did the Chernobyl nuclear disaster happen? The Chernobyl nuclear disaster happened due to a combination of factors, including a flawed reactor design with a positive void coefficient, operator errors during a safety test, and violation of safety protocols. Who were the key individuals involved in the Chernobyl nuclear disaster? The key individuals involved in the Chernobyl nuclear disaster were the operators and personnel conducting the safety test at reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The disaster also led to involvement from Soviet authorities and international experts in the aftermath. How did the Chernobyl nuclear disaster impact the surrounding environment and communities? The Chernobyl nuclear disaster had a severe impact on the surrounding environment and communities. The immediate area around the plant was heavily contaminated, leading to the evacuation and displacement of thousands of people from nearby towns. The release of radioactive materials also affected large parts of the Soviet Union and Europe, causing long-term health and environmental consequences. What measures were taken to contain the contamination and mitigate its effects in the aftermath of the disaster? In the aftermath of the disaster, efforts were made to contain the contamination and mitigate its effects. A concrete structure called the sarcophagus was hastily constructed over the damaged reactor to prevent further releases of radioactive materials. Later, a more permanent structure called the new safe confinement was built to encase the entire sarcophagus and reactor, ensuring greater stability and containment. Why did the Chernobyl nuclear disaster lead to international concern and cooperation? The Chernobyl nuclear disaster led to international concern and cooperation due to the release of radioactive materials, which affected neighboring countries in Europe. It raised awareness about the potential dangers of nuclear energy and prompted global discussions about nuclear safety standards and regulations. What kind of radiation discharged from Chernobyl? The Chernobyl disaster released gamma radiation, beta particles, alpha particles, and radioactive isotopes like iodine-131 and cesium-137. Now the extra mileage topic. What are the other historic events happened on that day, April 26, 1986? In addition to the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, there were a few other notable historic events that took place. 1. Mauna volcano eruption. On April 26, 1986, the Mauna Loa volcano in Hawaii erupted. Mauna Loa is one of the world's most active volcanoes, and this eruption was significant in terms of its size and potential impact on nearby communities. Fortunately, the eruption was mostly contained within the volcano's summit area, and there were no reported casualties or extensive damage. 2. Hubble Space Telescope launch delay. On April 26, 1986, NASA had originally planned to launch the Hubble Space Telescope aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger. However, due to the tragic Space Shuttle Challenger disaster that occurred on January 28, 1986, NASA delayed the Hubble Space Telescope launch until April 24, 1990. The Hubble Space Telescope went on to become one of the most important astronomical observatories in history, providing stunning images and critical scientific data. 3. The Los Angeles Central Library fire. On April 26, 1986, the Los Angeles Central Library in California, USA, suffered a massive fire that severely damaged the building and its contents. The fire destroyed approximately 400,000 books and damaged thousands more. It took firefighters more than 7 hours to contain the blaze, and the library underwent extensive renovations and repairs in the following years. 4. Radioactive rain in Ireland. In the aftermath of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, on April 26, 1986, radioactive rain was reported in parts of Ireland, including County Wicklow. The rain resulted from the dispersion of radioactive materials released during the Chernobyl accident, which were carried by atmospheric conditions to distant regions. These events, along with the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, marked April 26, 1986, as a significant and historically noteworthy day. As we conclude this journey through the historical events of April 26, 1986, we hope you've gained valuable insights into the significance of this day in history. From the tragic Chernobyl nuclear disaster to the Mauna Loa eruption, the launch delay of the Hubble Space Telescope, the LA Central Library fire, and even the spread of radioactive rain, these events have shaped our world. If you found this video informative and thought-provoking, we encourage you to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and consider subscribing to our channel for more intriguing explorations of history and beyond. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us continue bringing you engaging content. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the past. Remember to stay curious, keep learning, and let history be your guide. If you like the video, please share and subscribe.